Welcome back to the Ancestral Findings podcast. In most family trees, the women are harder to trace. They often changed names, had fewer legal rights, and were less likely to appear in records that followed property or voting. But court records, especially when women found themselves in trouble, can be some of the most detailed and revealing documents we have. Whether they were plaintiffs or defendants, women in court often left behind rare windows into their daily lives, hardships, and resilience. Some were victims of false accusation. Others were bold rulebreakers. And a few were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. If your family history research hasn't included looking for women in legal records, it's time to change that. The stories found there are sometimes heartbreaking, sometimes scandalous, but always human. What kinds of trouble did women face? Well, women didn't need to commit violent crimes to end up in court. In earlier centuries, just being outspoken, poor, unmarried, or unlucky could be enough. Some of the charges you'll see in old records include public intoxication, disorderly conduct or disturbing the peace, keeping a bawdy house, brothel, lewd and lascivious behavior, adultery or fornication, desertion, leaving a husband or family, infanticide or attempted abortion, theft, shoplifting or fraud, witchcraft or fortune-telling in earlier colonial periods, breach of promise, especially involving broken engagements. It's important to understand these in the context of the time. What was called immoral behavior or female delinquency was often poverty, survival, or independence. A woman running a boarding house might be labeled lewd. A pregnant, unmarried woman might face legal penalties while the man involved was untouched. One of the most haunting things about these cases is that they often represent the only record of a woman's voice. A deposition or court statement might be the only time her own words were recorded anywhere in history. You may find descriptions of her living conditions, names of children, boarders, or family members, information about her work, income, or trade, community attitudes toward her, her handwriting or spoken testimony. One researcher found her great-grandmother listed in a 1906 court case in Chicago for keeping disorderly quarters. It turned out she had taken in immigrant factory workers, young women with no families, during a harsh winter. A neighbor disapproved and filed a complaint. The judge fined her, but the testimony included heartfelt letters from the young women she sheltered. What started as a criminal record became a legacy of quiet heroism. Where can I find these records? Most cases involving women were heard at the county level, particularly misdemeanors or civil matters. Look for justice court, probate, or municipal court documents. More serious charges, like infanticide, property crimes, or public scandals, may have gone to a higher court. State archives often preserve these files, though some are still only on microfilm. If a woman disappears from records after a certain year, search local court indexes. You may find she was incarcerated or moved due to a legal event. The press loved a scandal, especially involving women. Headlines with words like woman, scandal, shocking, or trial can lead to stories that include names, addresses, relationships, and even photos. During the 1930s, social workers documented poor families and individuals caught in the justice system. These can include incredible detail about women's lives. If a woman was sentenced but later pardoned, records may survive that include testimonials, letters from family or clergy, and emotional pleas. The most famous trials involving women, like Lizzie Borden or the Salem witchcraft hysteria, are well known. But most women's legal cases were much quieter, often swept under the rug or forgotten by history. Some were accused unjustly. Some were punished harshly for minor offenses. Some were rebels who refused to play by the rules society gave them. A teenage girl in 1880s Indiana might be jailed for vagrancy if she left home. A widow in rural Tennessee could be taken to court for moral endangerment if she had unrelated male boarders. A domestic worker in New York City might be accused of theft with no real evidence, just suspicion from a wealthy employer. These cases reflect more than individual stories. They reveal how women were treated, judged, and limited by the laws of their time. When reviewing a legal file involving a woman, look for bias in the language. Words like fallen, unfit, or immoral, gaps in records, especially in cases that were dismissed or sealed, community involvement, who testified for or against her. Repeat appearances. Some women ended up in and out of court multiple times due to systemic poverty or limited options. Be careful not to apply modern judgment too quickly. Instead, let the story unfold with its full context. Many women simply did what they had to do to survive. Several women who left a mark on history also spent time in courtrooms. Belle Starr, the so-called Bandit Queen, was arrested numerous times for theft and association with outlaws. Molly Maguires in Pennsylvania were women arrested alongside men in labor uprisings during the 1870s Coal Wars. Madams of the West, including Mary Ellen Mammy Pleasant and others, often operated on the edge of legality, sometimes as businesswomen, sometimes under constant threat of arrest. You may not find a figure so notorious in your tree, but you might find someone just as bold in their own way. One of the most touching finds in recent research came from a woman who discovered that her great-aunt had been institutionalized after a courtroom accusation of mental unfitness. It turned out the woman had simply refused to marry the man her family chose for her and had lived alone, writing poetry. The court's solution was to remove her from society. Years later, her poems were found in a box in the attic. They told a different story. Legal records involving women may be buried deep in archives, mislabeled or forgotten, but they hold power. They tell of women who stood before a judge when few others had a voice. They reflect the weight of culture, law, and expectation. And sometimes they reveal bravery that never made the headlines. If you've never searched the court records for women in your family, you may be standing on the edge of a story no one ever told. It's worth finding. If you've got a hard-to-find ancestor you're stuck on, I'd love to hear about it. Just head over to ancestralfindings.com and click on Contact to send me a message. While you're there, take advantage of our free weekly genealogy lookups. Explore thousands of articles and enjoy hundreds of podcast episodes. We've been helping family history researchers since 1995. And if you're looking for even more, check out our Genealogy Gold Q&A series over on Patreon. Thanks for listening. And as always, happy searching.